Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As the final minutes ticked before the grand performance, the backstage atmosphere crackled with palpable tension. Keon found himself rooted, his gaze transfixed by his reflection in the dressing room mirror, barely believing the transformation that had taken place. It felt like he was gazing at a stranger. The once familiar face with its sharp jaw and distinctive auburn crop now belonged to a distant memory. Gazing back at Kian was a vision of femininity, delicate facial contours, long, flowing tresses of auburn hair, and a gentle elegance accentuated by the vintage floral gown that draped his form, accentuating a newly discovered hourglass figure. "Kian! Curtain rises in 5!" The stage manager's voice, sharp with urgency, pierced the frenzied hum around him, rousing Kian from his daze. Gathering his thoughts, Kian inhaled deeply, prepared to step on stage and embrace the new persona he had meticulously crafted. "It's Milani now," he murmured, testing out the name on his lips. It felt foreign, yet oddly right. As an understudy, Kian had never expected to actually perform. But when the lead actress came down with a nasty case of food poisoning mere hours before opening night, he'd been thrust into the spotlight. Now, standing before the mirror in full costume and makeup, he felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. "You've got this," he whispered to his reflection. "You know the lines. You know the blocking. Just be Milani." With one final glance in the mirror, Milani, took a deep breath and made her way to the wings. The hushed murmur of the audience on the other side of the curtain sent a shiver down her spine. "Places, everyone." The stage manager's whispered command set everything in motion. As the curtain rose, Milani felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. She stepped out onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her, but muscle memory took over, guiding her to her mark. "Another day, another $1, she proclaimed, her voice ringing out clear and strong. To her surprise, it sounded nothing like Kian's usual baritone. Instead, a rich alto filled the theater. The first act flew by in a blur of dialogue and carefully choreographed movements. Milani found herself settling into the role with unexpected ease. Each line flowed naturally, each gesture feeling more authentic than the last. During a brief moment off stage, she caught a glimpse of herself in a mirror. The auburn wig framed her face perfectly, softening her features in a way she'd never imagined possible. For a split second, she forgot she was playing a part. The woman in the mirror was real, vibrant, alive. As the final curtain fell, thunderous applause erupted from the audience. Milani's heart soared. They'd done it. No one had suspected a thing. The understudy had seamlessly stepped into the role, and the show had gone on without a hitch. Taking her final bow, Milani basked in the warmth of the spotlight. It felt like coming home, like she'd finally found a piece of herself she didn't even know was missing. Back in the dressing room, the adrenaline slowly began to fade. Milani sat heavily in front of the vanity, staring at her reflection. She should have felt relief, maybe even a sense of accomplishment. Instead, a growing unease settled in the pit of her stomach. "Hey, great job out there!" A voice startled her from her reverie. It was Marcus, one of the other actors. "I gotta say, I was worried when I heard about the last-minute switch, but you really pulled it off. If I didn't know better, I'd swear you were born to play Milani." Milani forced a smile. "Thanks, Marcus. It was quite an experience. As Marcus left, Milani turned back to the mirror. She should have been eager to remove the costume, to wash away the makeup, and return to being Kian. But something held her back. The thought of shedding this newfound identity filled her with an inexplicable sense of loss. With trembling hands, she reached up to remove the auburn wig, but as her fingers brushed against the silky strands, she hesitated. The person in the mirror looked so right, so complete. How could she just erase her? "It's just a role," she whispered to herself. "Just a character." But even as the words left her lips, she knew it wasn't true. This wasn't just about playing a part anymore. Something had shifted, fundamentally and irrevocably. Milani closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. When she opened them again, determination shone in her gaze. She couldn't ignore this feeling, this awakening. It was time to face the truth she'd been running from for so long. With newfound resolve, she began to carefully remove the stage makeup. As each layer came off, she half expected to see Kian emerge, but the face that looked back at her remained undeniably feminine, even without the theatrical enhancements. She changed out of the vintage floral dress, folding it carefully and placing it in her bag. Instead of reaching for Kian's clothes, she pulled out a simple blouse and skirt she'd borrowed from the costume department. It wasn't stealing if she planned to return them, right? As she slipped into the outfit, Milani felt a sense of rightness settle over her. The fabric whispered against her skin, a gentle reminder of the transformation she'd undergone. Gathering her things, she took one last look in the mirror. The auburn wig remained in place, a cascade of silky strands framing her face. She couldn't bring herself to take it off just yet. Maybe she never would. Stepping out of the theater into the cool night air, Milani felt like she was seeing the world through new eyes. The streetlights seemed brighter, the sounds of the city more vibrant. She was hyper-aware of every sensation, the brush of fabric against her legs, the gentle sway of her hair in the breeze. As she walked, her mind raced with questions and possibilities. How would her friends and family react? What would this mean for her career? Could she truly embrace this new identity? But beneath the uncertainty, a sense of excitement bubbled up. For the first time in her life, Milani felt truly alive, truly herself. The role she'd stepped into on stage had awakened something deep within her, something that had been waiting to emerge for years. She hailed a cab, giving the driver her address. As the city lights blurred past the window, Milani allowed herself to imagine a future where she could live as her true self every day. It wouldn't be easy, she knew that. But after tonight's performance, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The cab pulled up in front of her apartment building. Milani paid the fare and stepped out, her heart pounding as she approached the front door. This was it, the moment of truth. She was about to bring Milani home for the first time. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. The familiar surroundings felt strange now, like she was seeing them through new eyes. Photos of Kian lined the walls, smiling out at her from various stages of life, but they felt like relics from another time, another person. Milani made her way to the bedroom, switching on the light. The space that had once been Kian's sanctuary now felt alien. Masculine clothes hung in the closet, a stark reminder of the life she was leaving behind. Without hesitation, she began to clear a space in the closet. The borrowed blouse and skirt were carefully hung up, a small but significant step towards her new life. She'd need to go shopping soon, to build a wardrobe that truly reflected who she was. As she worked, Milani's mind wandered to the practical aspects of her transformation. There would be so much to do. Legally changing her name, starting hormone therapy, telling her friends and family. The thought was overwhelming, but also thrilling. Once she'd made space in the closet, Milani turned her attention to the vanity. She cleared away Keon's sparse collection of grooming products, replacing them with the stage makeup she'd borrowed. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Finally, she turned to face the full-length mirror on the back of the bedroom door. The woman who looked back at her was a stranger, yet intimately familiar. The auburn hair cascaded over her shoulders, framing a face that was softer, more open than Keon's had ever been. "Hello, Milani?" she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "It's nice to finally meet you." As the first rays of dawn began to peek through the curtains, Milani realized she'd been up all night. But she didn't feel tired. Instead, a sense of peace had settled over her, along with a fierce determination to embrace this new chapter of her life. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, Milani felt a strength she'd never known before. She was finally becoming the person she was always meant to be. With a smile, she turned away from the mirror and began to prepare for her first day as Milani. There was so much to do, so much to learn, but for now, she reveled in the simple joy of being true to herself. As she brewed her morning coffee, Milani's phone buzzed with a text from the theater's director. "Fantastic performance last night. The audience loved you. Can you fill in again tonight?" Milani's heart leapt. Another chance to be on stage, to fully inhabit her true self in front of an audience? It was more than she could have hoped for. "Absolutely," she texted back, her fingers trembling with excitement. "I'd be honored." Setting down her phone, Milani took a sip of her coffee and gazed out the window at the city coming to life. The world looked different now, full of possibility and promise. She was ready to step into the spotlight, both on stage and in her own life. As she finished her coffee, Milani began to plan her day. She needed to return to the theater early to discuss her continued role as the understudy. But first, she had an important stop to make. With determination in her step, Milani left her apartment and made her way to a nearby salon. The bell chimed as she pushed open the door, the scent of shampoo and hair products filling her nostrils. "Welcome! How can I help you today?" The stylist greeted her with a warm smile. Milani took a deep breath. "I'd like to dye my hair," she said, gesturing to the auburn wig she still wore. "This color, please, and a trim to match the style." The stylist nodded, leading her to a chair. As Milani settled in, she caught her reflection in the mirror. This was it. Another step towards making Milani a permanent part of her life. Hours later, Milani emerged from the salon, running her fingers through her newly dyed and styled auburn hair. It felt softer, more natural than the wig, yet just as transformative. She couldn't stop smiling as she made her way to the theater. The backstage area was quieter than it had been the night before, with only a few crew members milling about. Milani made her way to the director's office, her heart pounding with each step. "Ah, there you are!" The director, a jovial man named Robert, greeted her warmly. Come in. We have much to discuss." Milani settled into a chair across from Robert's desk. trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Thank you for having me back," she began. "I hope I didn't disappoint last night." Robert waved off her concerns. "Disappoint? My dear, you were a revelation. The audience was captivated. In fact, that's what I wanted to discuss with you." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "Our lead actress, I'm afraid, won't be returning anytime soon. Her doctor has ordered complete bed rest for at least a month, which leaves us in quite the predicament. Unless..." Milani's breath caught in her throat. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? "Unless," Robert continued, "you'd be willing to take on the role permanently for the entire run of the show." For a moment, Milani was speechless. This was beyond her wildest dreams, a chance to fully embrace her new identity, to live as Milani both on and off the stage. I'd be honored," she finally managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. "But there's something you should know." Taking a deep breath, Milani steeled herself for what came next. I'm transgender," she said, the words feeling strange yet right on her tongue. "Last night was the first time I'd ever presented as a woman publicly, but it felt so right, so true to who I am. I don't want to go back to pretending to be someone I'm not." She held her breath, waiting for Robert's reaction. To her surprise, he simply smiled and nodded. "My dear," he said gently, "I suspected as much. Your performance last night was too authentic, too heartfelt to be mere acting. You weren't just playing a role. You were becoming your true self." Tears welled up in Milani's eyes. "So, you're okay with this? With me taking on the role?" Robert reached across the desk, patting her hand. "More than okay. I think you're exactly what this production needs. Your journey, your authenticity. It will bring a depth to the character that no one else could achieve." As the reality of the situation sank in, Milani felt a weight lift from her shoulders. This was more than just a role now. It was a chance to fully step into her identity, to share her truth with the world. "Thank you," she whispered, wiping away a tear. "I won't let you down." Robert stood, coming around the desk to give her a warm hug. "I know you won't. Now, let's get you to wardrobe. We have a show to put on." The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of rehearsals, performances, and personal transformation. Milani threw herself into the role with a passion she'd never experienced before. Every night on stage was a chance to further explore and embrace her true self. Off stage, she began the process of transitioning in earnest. She started hormone therapy, began building a new wardrobe, and slowly came out to friends and family. Some were surprised, others claimed they'd always known. But to Milani's relief, most were supportive, even if they didn't always understand. Her auburn hair became her trademark, both on and off stage. She loved the way it caught the light, the way it made her feel uniquely herself. It was a constant reminder of that first night, the moment everything had changed. As the final week of performances approached, Milani found herself reflecting on how far she'd come. The nervous understudy who had stepped onto the stage that first night was gone, replaced by a confident woman who knew exactly who she was. On closing night, as she took her final bow to thunderous applause, Milani felt a sense of completion. This show had given her the courage to become her true self. And now, she was ready to carry that truth into every aspect of her life. As the curtain fell for the last time, Milani made her way back to her dressing room. The space that had once felt so foreign now felt like a second home. She sat at the vanity, gazing at her reflection. The woman who looked back at her was no longer a character, no longer a role to be played. She was Milani, in every sense of the word. The auburn hair, the soft curves, the confidence in her eyes. All of it was real. All of it was her. A knock at the door interrupted her reverie. "Come in," she called. Robert entered, a broad smile on his face. "Milani, my dear, you were magnificent. Truly, I've never seen a more captivating performance." Milani blushed, ducking her head. "Thank you, Robert, for everything. This show, it changed my life." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Art has a way of revealing our truest selves. I'm honored to have been a part of your journey." As Robert left, Milani turned back to the mirror. She thought about the long road ahead, the continued medical treatments, the legal name change, the countless explanations she'd have to give. But for the first time, she felt truly ready to face it all. She began to remove her stage makeup, revealing the woman beneath. With each swipe of the cloth, she reaffirmed her commitment to living authentically, to never again hiding who she truly was. As she changed out of her costume and into her own clothes, a flowing sundress that complemented her auburn hair perfectly, Milani felt a sense of excitement for what the future held. Her time on stage might be ending, but her real performance, living as her true self, was just beginning. With one last look in the mirror, Milani gathered her things and stepped out of the dressing room. The theater was quiet now, the audience long gone. But as she made her way through the darkened building, she could almost hear the echoes of applause, the remnants of the standing ovation that had marked her final performance. Pushing open the stage door, Milani stepped out into the warm night air. The city stretched out before her, a world of possibilities waiting to be explored. She took a deep breath, savoring the moment. This was just the first act of her new life, she realized. There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt and fear, but she was ready for them, ready to face the world as her true self, to live every day with the same authenticity and passion she'd found on stage. As she hailed a cab, Milani caught a glimpse of her reflection in a store window. The auburn hair glowed under the streetlights, framing a face filled with hope and determination. She smiled at herself, a silent promise to never again hide who she truly was. The cab pulled up, and Milani climbed in. "Where to?" the driver asked. For a moment, Milani paused. Where to, indeed? The future stretched out before her, full of unknown adventures and experiences. But one thing was certain. Wherever she went, she would go as her true self. "Home," she said finally, her voice strong and clear. "Take me home." As the cab pulled away from the curb, Milani leaned back in her seat, a contented smile on her face. The theater had given her the gift of self-discovery, had shown her who she truly was. Now it was up to her to carry that truth forward, to live each day as authentically as she had on stage. The city lights blurred past the window, and Milani felt a sense of peace settle over her. She was Milani now, truly and completely, and she couldn't wait to see what the next act of her life would bring.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!